Cyber Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts, namely me, Christina Richmond.
And me, Rory Duncan. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Hello, Christina. It seems as if we haven't talked for a little while.
It's true. We've been in our own corners doing our own thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. We've had I know we always end up talking about the weather the first thing we do, but then we're grey beards and grey hairs, so that's one of the things that those folk do.
Or cats.
Or cats. Yeah,
weather
exactly.
or cats.
Well, poor old cats.
We could do both. Poor old cats. Yeah. Your cat is all banged up from fighting recently, isn't he?
Jeez, I know. He needs to go to the VET on Saturday.
Can he spell?
Well, they're very good at knowing when they have to go. I think they're mind readers. But yes, aside from the poor old cat, it's been extremely hot here, like baking hot. And of course, the houses in Scotland are made of stone with slate roofs with double glazing. As Carol pointed out to me, they're designed to keep the heat in, not to keep the heat out. So, there we go. And yourself?
Yeah. Weather is volatile and it's cool. And it's very Scottish, actually. It's rainy and cloudy and windy and blustery. And we're supposed to have hail today.
What?
So we've just traded places, I think.
That's mad. Hail. It's hail. It's almost June. Gosh.
Yeah, it can happen here up in the inland Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm okay. I'm hanging in there. Interesting times, my friend. Interesting times. But enough about me. Tell me about our newsletter.
Yes, so shout out to our new subscribers, as we do. If you are interested in receiving our newsletter, it is free. You can sign up for it. We're not going to spam you with advertising for other things. So you can do so at our website, richmondadvisorygroup.com. Now, in our latest issue, we are giving subscribers what we would call a sneak peek at our AI Security Survey 2026. And we'll be sharing some very interesting data, specifically this issue about showing where organizations are on the AI maturity curve and where they believe they'll be in 12 to 18 months' time. So what is this AI maturity curve, this kind of journey that they're taking? Well, it's looking at embedded AI all the way through to what we would call fully governed autonomy. Or will they do this? Or maybe halfway in between. So that's the data we'll be sharing. Some very thought-provoking results there. So sign up for free, and we'll keep you in the loop about what's happening in the cybersecurity sector into the bargain.
Yeah, it's a short weekly newsletter, and there's a big chart in the middle that shows you what's happening. So let us know your thoughts. Take a look, sign up, get the weekly newsletter. And report back, folks. Let us know what you think.
Thank you. And then we have a special episode this week. No guest.
We do. No guest.
But only because we're going to be blathering on about special topic of the day. That's technical Christina language, that is, apparently.
Blathering on. Yeah, you've taken it on, yeah.
Well, so this week we're going to be discussing the state of the threat hunting market. Very topical, very, very hot right now. I will be going over the history, a little bit of history, key developments and challenges, and how we reached where we are today. We'll also be looking at some of the vendors. So, Christina, are there any dark horses potentially out there?
There are some interesting first movers. Would I call them? Would I say that there are some dark horses? No, but there are some first movers in the most modern iteration of threat hunting. So let's just leave it at that until we get to our chat.
So, Christina, special episode today, the threat hunting market.
Yeah,
Overview.
Rory.
Yeah.
It's a big one. Yeah.
It's huge. And especially when it comes to where we were and where we're going. So, I mean, for me, a lot of the nuances of these sectors and subsectors of the cybersecurity market are still relatively new. This one has been around for a long time, so it's less new to me. But there is quite a history behind it. You know, back when we talked about the importance of, reactive threat detection and, what we do about it. So do you want to talk us through what we mean by threat hunting and where we've come from, Christina?
Yeah, and threat hunting has typically been a part of other markets, right? It's been when you're an analyst and you segment markets into different silos, different categories, and we love to do that as analysts. And some analysts love to name the categories. I don't think I ever won any of those naming contests, but that's okay. Threat hunting has been a part of the threat intelligence market. It's been part of the managed security services market. It's been part of the risk market a little bit more so now than in the past. But I guess let me start with three different chunks of threat hunting. So one is reactive, and that's clearly exactly what it is. It's hunting, going after something that has already happened. So you've had an alert, you've had a new indicator of compromise, an IOC, you've had a breach report, there's executive concerns, you've had some kind of notification, and it matters because you want to know if the alert or the IOC or whatever it is represents something bigger. So it's often used in incident situations, and you're trying to see, is this an isolated thing or is it part of a bigger problem, a bigger compromise? So an example, EDR alert shows suspicious PowerShell use. Well, go hunt that reactively and make sure it's not real. If it is real, you have to take steps. So the team starts with a known signal and then expands outward. It's hard, but it's not the hardest thing to do. And we're very skilled at it, very adept at it. Probably the hardest thing is figuring out the scope. How far back do we go? How wide? Which systems do we look across?
Right.
But it can kind of just become a glorified alert in an investigation, right? It's just expanded triage. The second one is something that we thought was really sexy when I was at IDC doing MarketScapes in 2015, 2014, something like that. And proactive threat hunting came on the scene. And we gave extra points to those companies that were not just doing reactive threat hunting, but they were doing proactive. So proactively, they were going and looking for something based on hypothesis. So they were using their hypothesis, such as, wait, an attacker may be using valid credentials to access our cloud admin consoles. I'd better go look and see. Or there's a compromised service in our environment and there seems to be some lateral movement. Let's go look. And there's not a known alert, not a known IOC, not a known breach, but they're being proactive, right? So this is harder than reactive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's harder because, first of all, you need greater skill. And you also need better coverage across your telemetry. You have to, this was, in 2014, 2015, when we were starting to look at this, EDR was just endpoint. And then the endpoint folks started looking at cloud and email and network and all the other telemetry. So you need broader coverage. You also need knowledge of the attacker. You need to know something about them. Okay, I won't wax on too long or blather on. So proactive, you hope to do it without the pressure of an incident. Now, preemptive is where we are today. And I think it's very interesting. And it is very, very hard. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, and one of the things that you had pointed out, and listeners, we've been going backwards and forwards on taking some notes for this and framing the discussion so that accessible and easy to digest. But you talked about this, particularly about telemetry, right? If you think about going from reactive to proactive, the increase in the breadth and depth of telemetry you need, then for preemptive, it takes it that step further, right?
Yeah, it does. And your skills have to be even better. And you have to your point about the telemetry, Rory, you have to have visibility into all kinds of stuff. Like take a Netcraft or a ZeroFox or a Doppel or before AI, the folks that are doing takedowns, right? They have to have relationships with the providers, with the registrars, with the internet providers to be able to do takedowns. And when they say they do preemptive takedowns, which they're starting to say, especially Netcraft and before AI, I don't know, and ZeroFox to a certain extent, but more those two first ones are saying the word preemptive. When they say that, what they mean is they can look at the telemetry and they can say, this is likely to happen because we know the attacker, we see the telemetry, there might be some kind of threat in the wild. Where would that attacker go based on what we know about them and based on the exposures in our clients' environments, their attack surface and their risk and their business criticality? It's a lot that they have to bring in to then say, this is quite potentially a problem. We see percolation on the edges of whatever, the registrar, the ISP, the different service providers, that there could be an attack. We're going to go talk to our service providers and say, please take this down. And because of that relationship and because of the telemetry and the threat intelligence they have, usually that service provider will take it down for good reason, preemptively, which is really fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It strikes me that the further we go from reactive through proactive to preemptive, in previous days, a lot of the successful threat hunters highly valued their own IP in terms of the tools and technologies. That's not necessarily changed, but a lot of it was based on, we have this great database of telemetry data, and that's our unique. If we establish that preemptive is so hard that it requires a detailed ecosystem of partnerships in order for you to get anywhere close to doing that, it seems as if the most successful or the most effective of the preemptive threat hunters will have the deepest, most closest relationships with all these different types of players across the industry. It's much less about their own data that they have. Is that fair?
It's a great point, and I would expand it out. If you're going to do the takedown, you have to have the partnership, and there's that mutual benefit of having each other's data and working with the bigger data, like some kind of network provider, or ISP, registrar, etc. You have the benefit of that data. However, if you're just doing preemptive threat hunting and not taking anything down, then I would still agree you need the broader swath of data, but it can be more within not within network providers. It can be more within threat intelligence tips, the platforms, TIPs, like an Anomaly. It can be within the GTIG, the Google Threat Intelligence Group. It can be not so much about the takedown, that action, as protecting your customer preemptively to move something or remediate something or take something in a different direction in that client's environment. Therefore, you don't have to have the network exposure as much. It's a slight nuance. I think you're absolutely right. You have to have broader telemetry. I just would separate the takedown side from the managed service or the consultative service. That's how I would separate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there is a difference between, hey, look what we found, versus, hey, we found that and have taken it down already, so you don't really need to worry about that. That's there's a subtlety there, and we've talked about this quite a lot in the show before, that there's a plethora of ways to discover these attackers and these threats and potentially anticipate them and say, hey, this is coming up. But of course, what companies ultimately want is have those remediated using some kind of framework or permission-based system or something like that.
And also you have to bring in the risk conversation. And this is something that we saw Deepwatch do in 2025, where they were making everything about managed risk. So we're going to look at your environment. We're going to talk to you about what your critical assets are. We're going to look at your risk around those critical assets, and then we're going to focus our threat hunting on your behalf. Proactive is more the word they used last year. I don't know if they're using preemptive this year, but we're going to look at your risk, and then we're going to assess where to focus, where to prioritize our threat hunting. I think preemptive takes us to the very next place, which is then what is the attacker likely to do? Does it correlate to your, most critical assets? And is it a risk exposure that matters for your business? Do you care? This is where Mythos comes in too, because Mythos is going to give us 100x the vulnerabilities, but do we care?
Yeah. They're all bad, but which of those are the baddest of the bad, and that will
the baddest of the bad
that will take down your company or a key part of it, versus those that will do something, but it's a relatively low level risk. It's perhaps more annoying or more obstructive rather than destructive. At this stage, Christina, we've done pretty well, because there's one thing that we haven't mentioned.
No, don't.
Yes, it begins with A.
And it ends in I.
Oh, well done. You guessed exactly what. How did you guess what I was thinking? No,
I am preemptive.
Oh my
preemptive
God. Well, there
analyst.
you go. There you go. Preemptive analyst. Maybe that's a new category. Maybe that's the future of analysis in the age of AI. So we have to talk about that, because of course this is a key part. It's intrinsic to where we are now, and where pretty much everybody on the planet believes we're going to have to be in order to address the use of AI, particularly AI agents, as force multipliers, as people have talked about, right? So using AI agents for some of this autonomous or semi-autonomous hunting activities, as well as the attackers doing the same thing for force multiplying on the number of threats, the types of threats, and how many they can fire at organizations. So where are we with that?
Well, I think there are companies coming out with agentic tooling. And, Deepwatch is one that we mentioned a few minutes ago. They have proactive threat hunting agents for the Nexa platform, right? Ontinu provides autonomous agents for investigation, aggregating telemetry, forming hypotheses to help humans, right, in hunting. I think those are all good, but I think, oh gosh, the speed at which the machine, the agents, both from an adversarial perspective and from a defensive perspective, is going to exponentially increase to the level where, much like microscopic organisms, we won't be able to see them. So we have to develop the tooling to do this autonomously. And I think IBM is starting to develop, we saw with their autonomous security announcement, they're starting to develop the ability to detect, do quick triage, and then respond. I don't know that I've seen them do preemptive yet, but I think they have the basics to get there pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before, that IBM is the kind of bellwether for lots of things that happen in the industry. And if they're doing it, or they're talking about doing it, then, the rest of the industry should take note, because they are that is where the industry is going in many ways. They are the reflection of the bulk of the largest companies. So the fact that they have those technologies combined with their services through their partners, but also through their consulting services, is an indication of where it's going. Some of the companies that you mentioned, we've covered before in the past. We've talked a lot about Netcraft, preemptive domain disruption. We had a great chat with a company called Before AI a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, and that was about, using very much focused on the external, so external surface attacks by external threat actors, but they use prescriptive analytics to predict and preempt attacks. And they say it's extremely high levels of accuracy, 99.95%, monitoring the internet every 10 minutes and so on, that they can predict attacks around about, on average, 18 days in advance. So some of that sounds, wow, a year ago, maybe sci-fi in a way, because of the way that they say the technology can monitor anything that changes on the internet, every 10 minutes. Oh, they see
Isn't that
something
crazy?
Yeah, they see something spin up. Here's a domain or something that's appeared. It's likely to be malicious. Let's disrupt that before it actually becomes incorporated in the internet's infrastructure. That's definitely something that is worth looking at. We also looked at some of the companies that are doing these kind of automated, continuous, agentic red teaming, like Sweet Security, for instance. We talked about them on the news last week. So that's basically something that's kind of individual and particular to each client's unique and specific infrastructure. So they build this kind of model and kind of framework of knowledge around the infrastructure. And then they use their technology to then point it at the infrastructure they've modeled and find these exploitable paths before attackers do. So some of this, if we look at the compare and contrast, some of it is about entirely external threats. Others are about, looking inwards, looking at a unique infrastructure to see where potential threats can come from. So preemptively, there is a bit of a mix of approaches going on just now.
Well, and it sort of mirrors where we've been with cybersecurity as an industry, right? We would look internally and look at all of our tooling, which controls were where. We developed over time the ability to ingest logs and look at that exhaust from those internal tools and see whether they were aligned with vulnerabilities, if there was some suspicious activity, if they were configured properly. So that was an internal look. And then as we blew apart the perimeter, the castle and moat idea of security disappeared. And we then had devices and services everywhere, always on, at any time of day. We had to look more externally. And so I think, we've had services for a long time that have looked both internally and externally, like penetration testing or red teaming, seeing where things were penetrable. And they were usually a very static test in the past with many weeks of effort by many human beings. And they evolved to PTAS, that penetration testing as a service, and then that always on continuous pen testing. Same thing with red teaming. It was a group of people would show up at your environment and try to make you work hard to figure out how they were attacking you.
Yeah.
And now it's a service that is always on continuous if you want it to be. And they're both internal and external. It's quite a fascinating industry.
It is.
think.
Well, and to your point about it being, very, very hard, preemptive stuff, it could be anything and everything. And, we've got specialists or niche focusing on the threat from within. We've got others who only focus on the threat from without. If we're looking at prioritizing where the biggest threats are coming from, everybody seems to agree with that. It's not it's more important external versus more important internal. That discussion doesn't take place, but clearly there's a kind of a hierarchy of threats that are out there, and we've talked about this before. One of the questions I had for you, and I know I have many questions for you, Christina, but something we wanted to talk about was potentially looking at external threat groups. We talked a lot in the last year, and it's particularly because of the situation in Europe and the Middle East. And I, for one, personally feel very close to that for many obvious reasons. Some would say that, hey, the number one focus should be on the nation states, the bad actors that are either doing it as nation states clearly or through proxies, through their intelligence services or sponsored by them. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but it's not all. Is it, do you think, up to individual companies to determine what the hierarchy of threats is for their own organization? Or do we have to we can't really pick and choose, we have to cover them all?
Oh, that is the $1,000,000 question. I am more of an individualist than a nationalist, and I'm also a globalist. So I feel like there are threats globally that all nations should be coordinating on. Do we today? Maybe when it comes to nuclear challenge, maybe when it comes to some life-ending possibility that involves some kind of threat group that is attacking critical infrastructure, right? And then there's the nationalist view, which is, I'm going to take care of my own nation state and try to thwart other nation states. But we also preemptively hack into other nation states. All of us do. We like to stand on our high horse and say that we are being attacked and we never attack, but we all do. Yeah. We're all looking for IP or threat intelligence for our own behalf.
Just to interject there for listeners, Sidekicks does not condone the hacking of nation states for IP or anything else like that, and we certainly don't do it on the show. But we can't speak. No. We can't speak to other people. So just right. To say, when we say we mean kind of one, the human race.
That's right. That's our disclaimer.
Other people, not us.
Other people, not us. It's the royal we.
Yeah. And maybe maybe not even any royals were involved.
Well, exactly. Another disclaimer.
Yeah. Okay. Carry.
But then there's the individualist in me, which is every single private company needs to find their own risk registry, put together their own registry, put together what matters to them, what their industry is, where they're looking preemptively. And I will say that it is the private enterprise that often helps government. At least in the US, there is a lot of threat hunting and threat intelligence left to private industry in the United States. And there is a partnership between many, especially telcos, and the US government and cloud providers. Although there's also that dance of, we won't show you all of our private data because we have PII and PHI that we're not going to share. And the government says, but you must. So there's that dance where the government will subpoena Google, and then Google will say no and be in contempt. It's an ongoing dance that happens in the US. But private industry is very important to government protection. At least in the US. I think it's different in communist or socialist countries where the center point is the government doing all of the threat intelligence on behalf of the civilians.
Yeah. We have been talking for quite a while, which is great. It's really interesting chat. We should probably look to finish the next couple of questions or points we're going to be making.
Okay.
If we've gone...
You want me to stop waxing poetic?
No. Waxing poetic is fine. Blathering on, that's right. So we've gone from reactive to proactive to preemptive. Where next? Is it like... sentient?
It's continuous. Yeah, it's sentient. It's
hunting?
Telepathic. Well, preemptive, it seems preemptive would be as far as you can go, but I would say preemptive at machine speed, for lack of a sexy term, is where we need to go next.
Close to real time, continuously updated, continuously fully automated, fully governed, fully remediated, without really much input required from the human handlers. As long as it does it correctly, I suppose that would be where it goes next.
Yeah, I agree. And so in the interest of maybe coming to a place of conclusion. I don't think this is as cut and dry as when we talked about MDR, XDR, and we pulled out a few dark horses, or governance, risk, and compliance, the GRC market, and we talked about, there were much more concrete things in that we're now at a place of much more automation with GRC, and that's a blessing. With threat hunting, it's still a bit of a game of whack-a-mole. It always will be, where we're on our back foot in security. And that's partly because the nature of building and developing anything leaves security out for speed and efficiency. So we're always chasing the securing of the software or the tooling or the environment a bit behind the development and creation. And so there's going to be this whack-a-mole. So reactive threat hunting will exist probably forever. Proactive is kind of the standard. It's table stakes. And I think as we move into more and more of the agentic capabilities, we'll see better and better machine speed preemptive. So who are some of the early movers? I guess that's where we should wrap up. I'm fascinated by the takedown and disruption providers, Netcraft before AI, the ones that we've been talking about, where they can proactively identify and then preemptively take down criminally controlled domains. That is an early mover to me. It's not the incident response market with threat hunting attached. It's not managed services with threat hunting attached. It is threat hunting, though, to preemptively take something down, in my mind.
Yeah, I think so. As ever, I have been trying to grasp the animal analogies here. And I guess I take away from this episode, no dark horses, but plenty of moles to whack.
Always fun, Rory. That's great. Well, I love it. So, Rory, that was a great discussion. I loved the moles. I just, okay, we'll just stick with moles, no horses this time. And we talked about some really interesting companies. One that we didn't call out is Nisos. And I think Nisos is really interesting because they have this Ascend Insider Threat Intelligence. And basically, they're taking open source executive data and they're combining it with digital investigations. Are they preemptive? For their executives, they're trying to be preemptive, because otherwise, what's the point? You end up with a dead executive. So they're being preemptive. So I think we're getting this preemptive threat hunting from lots of different directions. We talked about IBM a little bit. I mean, they're really more doing the offensive pen testing, but they've got the ability to become preemptive. So I'm going to be looking for that with them. Bishop Fox, there's another one. And Google. So if there are first movers, they're in very different quadrants of the cybersecurity realms, and we should keep an eye on them. But no dark horses, only moles. What do we have on next week, Rory?
Oh, well, we have a very, very special episode next week. Yeah, we'll give you a clue, folks. Hair and makeup. And that's just for me.
All right. I was going to say, is that for you?
It is.
Or is that for me?
Yes, folks. It'll be a video podcast next week. So send your suggestions, ideas of what you would like us to cover. Even maybe what you'd like us to wear or not wear. And we'll see what we can do. And needless to say, we hope it will be fun and engaging and entertaining as well as educational. We look forward to getting your feedback in advance of what you'd like us to cover. Alternatively, you can get in touch with us through email, and you can do that through me, Rory, at richmondadvisorygroup.com, as well as
me, Christina, at richmondadvisorygroup.com, and we have an info at richmondadvisorygroup.com. But I'm going to warn you, if you're a spammer or a hacker, we've already received our first spam, don't bother. But if you have general questions you'd like to send to both Rory and me, we both check the inbox, info at richmondadvisorygroup.com.
Yep, spammers will be ejected and rejected. We want real people, real people.
Yes.
Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.
Have a good week. Bye-bye.